Welcome everyone to today's social system mapping sense-making session for March 6th, 2023. I'm amazed we're already this far into the year. Those of you who are new to this context, what this is it's a vision about a possibility, essentially a possibility that social system mapping can help networks become self-organizing and effective more quickly. And more powerfully than without one. It's also a learning opportunity to learn a little bit about social system mapping. It's an opportunity to contribute a little bit of your own experience and insight to one another. And essentially it's a community of practice. There's a group of us who are working on sort of developing this potential and the methodology around this potential and shared learning. So, and then there's a map at the core of it that you'll get a chance to look at in a little bit. So our objectives today are for you to come away with a sense of the potential that we're inspired by, for you to meet some cool folks and feel welcomed by them, that you come away at least a little bit curious about social system mapping if you aren't already, and about about human systems dynamics as its own standalone methodology, but also how human systems dynamics and social system mapping can inform each other and amplify the effectiveness of both. We also hope that you are able to come away with thinking a little bit more deeply together about the value of pattern spotting in social change context. Pattern spotting is what we're going to look at today, and that you take away a very simple tool, the pattern spotting tool, to help apply that in whatever you're doing. So next page. So for today's agenda, we're going to do some introductions and some framing. We're going to do a shortish breakout, and then for you to introduce yourselves to each other. Then we're going to do some theory and introduce the tool, and then we'll put you back into the same group again together that you were already introduced with, and do some pattern spotting with our map, and then come back and review and reflect. And if there's any announcements, we'll try to fit those in. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to ask you to, and I'm just say, welcome Katie and Denise and Bill, who just showed up. Welcome. And we have another person coming in, so we're sort of all still coming together. But I'm going to go ahead and ask you to, in the chat, to share your name, pronouns, location, and a network or networks that you're supporting in some way. Put them all together in the, oh, wait a minute. No, I'm sorry. Don't put them in the chat. Put them in the, Kara, can you share the link to the Mentimeter? And I'm going to go back to, and welcome Victoria. Glad you could join us. We're just sort of getting rolling. And feel free to unmute and just say hi if you would like to, but don't feel like you need to, or you're required to.
Well, hello, it's good to be with you all.
Welcome, glad you could join us. Okay, let's see. Can people see my screen?
Yes.
And I just am having, okay. I was having a little, how my view was working weirdness that I didn't like. Still trying to get that. So I'm okay. Okay, so I'm sorry, I wasn't noticing the chat. The link is not working. Is that what you're saying, Kara?
Yeah, it's making me log in or sign up, Christine.
I got in.
Okay.
You got in, Cindy?
Yeah, I did.
Is anybody else seeing the link in the chat? And so try the first one.
I don't see a link.
Oh, okay. I think we've got, okay. So I think Kara put the first one you put in was a follow along. And I think that is, so don't go to the follow along one for voting.
Okay.
The voting is the last, Kara, is the last link you put in the voting link? No, you put the voting link in. Okay. That shorter one that says menti.com, and then it's short, is the one for everybody to vote in. And we will be getting input throughout the session from you. So if you have the technical bandwidth right now to do that, that's great. If you don't, feel free to just go ahead and default to the chat, but it's nice to be able to see them all together. But don't stress if it's technically challenging. There's no pressure, and don't feel like you have to do anything that is invited. There's no command performance, and you are free to choose how you want to engage. So are people, oh, wait a minute. Why is it not showing me answers? Always something new to get used to. Everything's always changing. Okay, so great. So I'm seeing that some of you are in there, and that you, we have a few new faces and some really familiar faces. And so Kisa, welcome from the local Michigan Local Food Council Network. That's welcome to you. Yes, and Amy in the network of churches via Rio, Texas Conference of UMC. Cool. Do you know Tom? Do you know Amy?
Can't see Tom's face right now, but Tom doesn't sound familiar. I will.
Okay.
Now, but we
Okay, well,
probably
you're-
should know each other.
Yeah, you should. You're both working with churches. So maybe you shouldn't, but I was just wondering if that was a connection there. Okay, and then we've got Victoria from Taos. I don't know if you know, I used to live in Taos, so I love seeing anything from New Mexico. And a building equity community practice, great. And Katie from California. And Brian and Mary are also from California, and Cindy's from Alaska. So we've got food stuff going on and California stuff going on, and equity and churches I'm seeing today. Cool. So next is one big challenge that you experience in doing collaborative work in networks. If you can share something like that, if you would like, if you're willing to share that sort of thing. Oh, and okay, so enter. Now we get to see the answers. Okay. Aligning values through the initiative or focus. And Mary Roscoe is a challenge that Mary Roscoe.
Oh, I got all mixed up with.
There, that's all good.
But I am a challenge.
I was going to say that happens.
Yeah.
Right amount of structure without becoming institutionalized. Yeah, that feels very resonant. Bridging those who are totally into it and those who aren't oriented to it for one reason or another. Yeah, this explaining, demonstrating. Okay, so this is social system mapping. Yeah.
Did mine not go in? Wow.
I don't know.
Let me see if I can go back and do it again.
So losing energy, feeling potential, and then losing energy and defaulting to old ways. Yeah, that I see that a lot. Keeping that momentum with slow and incremental change, and the fundamental change in how we think. And so for today's session, this fundamental change in how we think is part of what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to jump ahead, but Phil, please do keep putting input into the Mentimeter, and then move forward if you have stuff to share. Okay, so for those of you, we want to do a quick poll to see who is how familiar you are with social system mapping, just so that we have a sense of your comfort level with some of our the things we assume, or the things that our general content matter. Want to see where we all are, and that's going to be part of the first brief introduction, is to just share with each other how familiar you are and how comfortable you are with this content, so that those who are more comfortable can be supportive of and attentive to those who are new to it, and would need to be helped along so that they can feel not left out. Okay, so we've got someone who's not sure what we're talking about, a couple people who have a rough idea, a number of people who have worked on maps and are teaching others, and a number of people who can find their way around a map. So again, in our sessions, our priority is those who have questions, and to be supportive of the new people so that they can feel engaged and get their needs met, as opposed to talked down to or left out and ignored. I know none of you who know all this stuff behave that way. I just want to say that as a norm for us. Okay, so the next question is, how familiar are you with human systems dynamics? And human systems dynamics is a sort of one very well established approach to systems thinking that focuses on human systems, and that is far more focused on, I would say, on application than on theory. And so it's very accessible, and it's a bunch of what they call models and methods. And Lisa and I are both practitioners of human systems dynamics, and if anyone else here is, that'd be great to know. And then we use human systems dynamics often as a lens for examining our social system mapping as well as our networks. Okay, so a couple who aren't sure what we're talking about at all, and then some with a rough idea. So we've got a mix here. And again, be helpful and supportive, please. Okay, so quick introduction to what a social system map is. I like to say it's a mashup of a system map, a stakeholder map, asset map, social network map, concept map. All these kinds of maps and more are all sort of mashed into one. And while they have a lot in common, which is in all of these kinds of maps, you'll generally see something like nodes and lines, even if they're a little abstracted. But what is different about a social system map is that it has all of these dimensions together. So it's far more complex, it's far more dimensional, it's far more, the data is far more enmeshed. And so you have to look at it from, you can look at it from a lot more angles. It's also takes place over time, so that there's a lot to learn, and it can be can tell you a lot, and it can also be a little overwhelming, more than a little. It's also a process more than a product. So it's really about the process of making sense with the map and building the map and continuing to use the map to inform your network development. It's online, interactive, it's accessible to all network members, and it's an iterative, emergent, dynamic, and ongoing collective practice. But what's the purpose of it? The purpose of a social system map is about systemic transformation. So I like to say that we are supporting a global movement that's working to shift from systems of dominance, exploitation, and extraction to systems of connection, reverence, and regeneration. And essentially, well, systemic transformation, I think we all know because we're all here working on it. You wouldn't be here if you weren't part of this movement. Requires strong networks of wise change agents, and how to work in that way is new and challenging. And I like to boil it down to, there's two fundamental shifts that we're working on with social system mapping. One of them is shifting from a separate self, competitive, separate self paradigm into an interbeing self. So understanding how we're connected to each other, to the planet, to all the other life forms, just learning to see things in that different way and act accordingly to that difference. The other shift that I talk about is a cognitive shift. So it's great if we build lots of relationships, but we also need to, and that's a super important, super foundational piece of this puzzle, but we also need to be shifting our mindset from a mechanistic worldview to the worldview of a complex adaptive system, or living systems worldview. And so we need to be doing both at the same time. Those shifts need to be intermeshed so that as we're building our relationships, we're also building our complexity muscles, or our complexity competence. And that's what social system mapping is designed to help on both of those levels, the relational shift and the cognitive shift. I'm going to share with you how this is our, we're still trying to figure out exactly what its name is, but this is, sometimes it's called the explainer graphic, sometimes we call it the theory of transformation, or our social system mapping theory of transformation, and sometimes we call it the vortex. But I'm going to share with you this graphic that sort of talks through the theory of how this works. So we start out with some people, and so some of you might be at this stage where you've got some people, they have some kind of potential to them. There's some kind of shared perspective or shared purpose or shared system shift that they are all interested in helping to facilitate. They may know each other or not know each other. They may already be somewhat coordinated or not, but they're there and there's a potential that somebody senses. And so, this potential, there gets to be a desire for that potential to ripple out into the world, for these people and their intention to be able to make a difference and to have an impact. And so a few people from this group, this is a subset of this group, and this may be people who are staff that are hired by a foundation, or they might just be people who spontaneously out of this group decide to take some initiative and try and pull something together, but they start to meet amongst themselves to figure out how can we create a more coordinated, more help this group of people, this potential, be more aware of each other, be more coordinated, more connected, help resources flow, etc., so that they can amplify the change that this group is trying to make. So this little purple swath means convening, gathering, doing relational building kinds of stuff. So they're starting and then they start to do some convening with this group. They bring people together, they do whatever, hosting, they might have surveys, they might do some kinds of workshops. Whatever they do, they're trying to begin to create some kind of actual network with momentum or community with to increase that impact, to generate those ripples that they want to generate. Somewhere along the line, they start to say, well, it would be really great if we could know who knows each other, or if we could see who needs to be introduced, or if we had a better sense of who's doing what kind of work or who lives where. Whatever it is, they start to imagine wanting to be able to have a better insight into the players on the ground and into what's going on in the network. And so they might not say to themselves, we need a social system map, because they might not be introduced to social system mapping, but essentially often what they're looking for, a social system map can be a really valuable part of. It's not the only piece of being able to see into the system. It's certainly not the only kind of approach to systems thinking or to network weaving, but it can be a big contributing piece of it. So there gets to be this kind of idea, we need something like a social system map. And then they will, at some point, they'll come across social system mapping and they'll decide to make one. So this group of people will sort of generate the survey and make sure that this map happens. Maybe somebody that we're starting to grow this middle piece. The data comes from the people on the ground. So the survey asks people on the ground what relationships they have, how they fit in the system, etc. And then everyone on the ground and everyone in between can access that data. So this is the data loop going from the people to the map and back to the people. Then the conveners, the people in the middle, the network guardians, the people who are working on this, start to use the map to inform how they gather the people. So this is still social, relational building, connecting, convening, relationship stuff. Data's going in and out. The map, these people are using the map. Then we start to add in, and this orange piece is our represents for us starting to think systemically and starting to think about complexity. So we're building relationships, but if we want to really change systems, we need to start to understand how systems work, and we need to start to think of ourselves as a system and see the network we're in as a system and work with it as if it's a complex living entity, which it is, and work with that, work with the world outside as if it's a complex living entity, which it is. And so we start to add in some systems thinking, of which what we're going to do today, I would say, fits right in with this very early beginning wispy stages of orange. The pattern spotting is a good piece of that. So we're starting to interweave using the map with systems thinking. And then we do some more convening. All of this starts to gather more people's energy and insight and interest. And so we get more people up here in the middle. As it goes on, one of the things we discover, and social system mapping is designed to accommodate, is that as we proceed, we start to have, so we make a map, and we started with a small handful of people, but as we what we call socializing the map, as the map gets more used by more people, what's naturally going to happen is people are going to start to say, oh, this question just doesn't work for me, you know, it should be worded differently, or why did you leave out this other question, or I think we should have this or that or the other. So we make it so that you can add that question. You can ask people to continue to update the map. You can ask people to continue to, we can continue to go back in and add new questions and ask for people to update them. So the data now is starting to get a little closer. It's a little more aligned with the actual activities of the network and the actual insights into the system that that you're starting to gain. So this data is starting to get a little bit closer to this sort of active, formative, catalyzing center of people. And we're having a number of people popping on, and welcome. Sort of partway through this initial piece of the presentation, I'm going to just keep moving forward. So that's, you know, a good robust stage. I would say I have seen, I have worked in maps where we've gotten to this stage and we've sort of iterated questions a few times. I think our social system mapping community of practice map is kind of at this stage. And then our hypothesis from lots of systems thinking theories, lots of social network analysis, from lots of different places, our hypothesis is that if we keep doing this using of a social system map to not only build relationships, but help us have an applied and relevant and meaningful context for learning system thinking tools and approaches, that we will, as we keep doing that and keep iterating the map, that the data gets closer and closer to the real core catalytic part of the network in terms of its content and its meaning and how it's being used, that we have more and more convening, we have more and more sense making, and that over time we get to a point where in an ideal world, the data, the sense making, the relationship building, everything is just all lining up together and feeding into a lot of momentum. And so that's why we one of the names for this is the vortex, in that it pulls things in by the activity. So that's the theory of change, or the theory of transformation. And I'm gonna stop sharing, and we're going to.
Christine, I'm going to jump in because I have a question. I'm watching chat a little bit, and
yeah, good, thank you.
There was a question more when you were talking about the two shifts, the relational shift and the shift to system thinking, about living systems, and just talking a little bit more about that. We talk often in social system mapping about living systems, about complex adaptive systems, about self-organizing systems. I think one thing to say about that is that we're talking about human systems here in general when we're talking about our networks, but I'm wondering if there's anything else you want to flesh out about that. It came in a question in the chat.
I think the one thing I would say is that the human is not knowing. I mean, yeah, sorry. We're distinguishing between sort of Newtonian, old school, mechanistic, like machine thinking systems versus living systems, which living systems are self-organizing, they're adaptive, you can't, they're very enmeshed. I mean, there's so much going on that you can't really piece out cause and
Massively
effect.
entangled.
They're massively entangled. And so we have to deal with them differently than we deal with mechanistic systems. You can't just sort of, jump through a bunch of, it's not like a set of dominoes where you can, push the first domino and you can know it's all gonna, that tipping thing where they all fall down. You have to handle it. You have to work with it differently. And the other thing I was wanted to say was simply that when we're talking about living systems, we are talking about human systems, but a lot of our insight into human systems is coming from the understanding of natural systems. So also understanding biology and things like permaculture and how ecosystems work is, a kind of school for helping us let go of our mechanistic mindset and move into a more living systems mindset. So thanks,
Great.
Lisa. Was there something else you wanted to
No,
highlight?
people are liking the theory of change. That's the other thing in chat.
Yay, good.
Great.
Just everyone who worked on that, we wanted Brian, Mary, Jim, so Brian, and Mary Roscoe and Jim and I, and also Mary's daughter were the one, we worked for nearly a year on that theory of
Oh,
change.
great.
It's like the graphics and the thinking. So I just wanted to recognize their contribution to that change, or that what we've done. Okay, so Kara, are you ready to do breakouts? Okay. And then Lisa, do you want to just tell them, do you want to move them into it, or do you want me to? It's pretty simple.
Go ahead.
Okay. So we're going to put you in breakouts for 5 minutes. Have you introduce your location network and your core work within your networks, and then also share with each other your level of experience with both social system mapping and or human systems dynamics, and or also just systems thinking in general. Like, where are you at with that? So that you can all be supportive of each other and know where each other is. So we will put you for 5 minutes. We'll give a 1 minute warning at the 4 minute mark, right, Kara? Okay. And then we'll come back and Lisa will lead us in a pattern spotting exercise. So any questions before we go? I think we're good. Go ahead. Okay, here they come. Welcome back. I hope you had a good few minutes and got a little bit of sense of who each other is and connection. And yay, Lisa's back. So Lisa, do you want to, I don't know if I should share my screen. Okay, so when we talk about social system mapping and we talk about doing sense making with social system mapping, I wanted to give us to just sort of define what that means a little bit. And so first of all, I just want to make the connection that this sense making piece is what we're doing. This is like the orange swaths in our diagram, and it is arbitrary, and it is there is no real distinction between the relational dynamics and the cognitive dynamics in real life. But I find that it can be uncomfortable for us to start to think about our thinking and talk about how we're thinking. And often in this, especially when we're in the early stages of a network, we just want everyone to connect to everybody. We just want to develop warm, fuzzy, trusting relationships. And we focus a lot on the relational thing. And when somebody starts to say, okay, but how are we thinking about this? Or how are we approaching about this? Or what are our assumptions or whatever? People start to go, oh, that's too much work, or that, like, oh, I don't want to go there, or let us do the fun part, or I don't want to spend a lot of time navel gazing, etc. And so I feel a perpetual need to sort of call out, that's part of the work. Beginning to think about how we think is part of the work. And so let's not just keep pushing it back while we build relationships. We can do them both at the same time, and we need to. But so the sense making piece is my way of saying this is part of the orange swath that we need to not neglect as we're focusing on the purple swaths. So sense making is a collaborative process of creating a shared awareness and understanding out of different individual perspectives and varied interests. So using this definition, sense making is something we do with each other and we do across differences and across different perspectives. And that's what a social system map is really designed to help us see those, see from the different perspectives, and to look at a map together is that creating shared awareness and understanding piece. Sense making is also a response to novel or unexpected stimuli as it integrates new information into an ever updating model of the world. And that piece is what we're going to talk about today, like a tool for doing that both by ourselves, but also doing that collectively together, that being able to sense and notice the novel or unexpected stimuli. And all of these things, both of those bullet points help us to discover our blind spots and move past the sticking points that we aren't even necessarily aware of, are sticking points that are holding us back from the kinds of changes we want to make. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about sense making. And now, Lisa.
Actually, Christine, can you go to the pattern spotter slide, and we'll come back to this one. So yeah,
Right.
just stop there. That's all right.
There.
Thank you. So sense making is often this question of where do we start with doing it? And so we've been using these sense making sessions every month to connect it to a model or method that we have from human systems dynamics. So we're putting those two together and giving you another model and method this time. And the one we're looking at is pattern spotters. And it's a great tool, and we're going to come back to this slide in a minute, but just showing you that we're trying to find patterns that happen in our network, and our maps are often really great visual indicators of these patterns, because that's a great place to start making sense when we're really overwhelmed. It works great with overwhelm when we feel like we have all this data now on our map, or we have all this information from our network, but we're not quite sure how to move forward. It's a great place if we feel like we're stuck in certain challenges or dilemmas. And I was telling Christine, like the challenges that you saw me put this in chat too, those ones that you put in the Mentimeter when you first came in the room, those are great examples of patterns as well. And it's a great place of uncertainty, like I'm not sure where to move forward or what's going to most help the network right now. It's a good tool for those kinds of contexts, right? So any kind of place we're living in this living system where we can't really always find a cause and effect, and we can't really predict the future always, this is a great tool for that. So let's go into how we look at pattern spotters. We're going to go back to that cube that we just showed, if you don't mind, Christine.
Okay, I'm getting there.
Yep, sorry,
All
making you jump around.
No, it's okay.
And this is what it looks like sometimes, right? When we're trying to figure out where to start with sense making with our networks, or we're looking at our social system maps, and we have a lot of information. And so you can see that happening on this visual you have in front of you, a lot of different words and this cube. Please go to the next slide. So I want to just start with, how is this making you feel when you look at this visual we have in front of you, this cube? And I think we have it on the Mentimeter. Is that right, Christine?
Yeah.
That you can put in there if you're following along. Maybe Kara, do you mind putting the Mentimeter link in the chat again? And it says, seeing this word thing makes me feel. So go ahead and put that in there.
I'll put it back up for a moment. Oh, hang on.
And we'll see how this is making all of you feel to see this. What are you noticing?
Dizzy. Yeah.
Dizzy? Yeah. Curious?
Discouraged. Yep.
This is great. Yeah. Confused, overwhelmed, resonates. Yep.
Slightly
Too much
nauseous.
work, right? Like Monday. It feels like Monday to me.
Well,
Slightly nauseous, boxed in. Oh yeah, wondering where the boundaries are. That's great. A lot
Yeah.
of words, too much. Yeah.
This is what I get all the time when people first look at a social system app. I watch people's faces and they're just going like, oh, so
Yes.
it fits.
Excellent. Okay, let's go back.
Go back or go.
Or where go however toward the next slide.
Okay.
We do this
Okay.
in Mentimeters. Okay, so now if we use this tool of looking at the patterns, we're going to go one by one with these patterns and see how it might help us start sorting out in that overwhelm. And let me go one by one on these. Next slide,
Oh,
please.
we're just at the intro. Do you want me to go to the? Okay.
No, I want to explain through these. So patterns are what we're going to notice here, and we'll use the box to explain it in a minute. But there's 4 patterns that we talk about in HSD, Human Systems Dynamics. So one is, first of all, just what are the generalizations that you notice? So if you're thinking about your own network, you can think about that. In general, I notice, but so that this is the contradiction that you notice to those general patterns. Where is there an outlier? Where is there something opposite of that generalization that you notice happening? The third one is, I'm surprised that this or what was something that you were expecting that didn't happen, or you weren't expecting it and it did happen. So something that's just caught you by surprise, and then something you're wondering about, or maybe it's just kind of puzzling for you in your network or in whatever system you're looking at, right? So these are the pattern spotters. We're going to take them one by one and look at this cube with each one and just practice this. And I'm going to have you just put in is it in the Mentimeter or do we put it in the chat, Christine?
No, it's in the Mentimeter.
Okay, so the first one, as you look at this cube now, which was a little overwhelming for most of us, let's start with the first pattern of generalizations. What are some of the general things you're noticing? Go ahead and put that in. You might have to skip to the next question in Mentimeter. Make sure you're at that step. And just write.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Christine.
Well,
Go ahead.
I'm noticing that the way they have it now, the picture goes away when I show the responses, and I'm gonna leave the picture up for a while before
Okay.
so there's a
Yep.
bunch of responses so people can.
Yep. So go ahead into your link of the Mentimeter and answer that, and then Christine show it. So what we're doing is, what are the generalizations you notice about this visual box in front of you? Yeah, and you can submit. I know you can submit multiple answers too.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and start showing them.
Okay, great. Okay, so get some good generalizations here around color. Different, where some of that there's actually differences showing up in the generalizations. Yeah, some of the words are not in everyday language. Perception-based. Huh, interesting. And shared awareness is the most popular response. Funny. Okay, so you're already, in some of these, you're already moving to the next pattern, which is, it's so natural for us to do that, which is, let's do that next one. In general, I noticed, but, so what are the contradictions? There's generalization, but then there's contradictions happening here. What are those? Put those into the Mentimeter. We'll leave the visual up here for a minute.
Actually, Lisa, Amy let me know that the visual stays on her screen, even though she's inputting. So I'm going to go ahead and.
Okay, that's true. It does stay over on the Mentimeter screen.
So if you're in your Mentimeter, then you'll still see it.
Yep. These are great. Good ones coming out here. You can read through these and they'll scroll so can we scroll and see these answers, Christine, on your shared screen? Or I guess
You mean, hang on.
how do we see all of them?
Yeah, hang on. Sorry.
Okay, there we go.
Is that working? Okay.
Yep. I think it just kind of scrolls over time, right? Now we're just seeing the bottom ones.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't tell what's going on the.
Yeah, it's kind of going up and down a little bit, but that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
Okay, so we're seeing generalizations and then some exceptions, some contradictions that are happening. Like one is interesting is how there's the same word. And the contradiction is they're different sizes or different fonts or different colors even. Or there are words you can read, but there's some that are really almost impossible to read.
The flow, the direction of the words.
Yep, the
changes.
flow and direction. What else are you noticing, Christine?
Someone is noticing that there's just too many.
Yeah.
About
And it's interesting. There's a lot of words, but no vertical. Almost, yeah, no straight vertical.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, let's do the next couple here. Let's keep us moving. Okay, what are you surprised by? Or maybe if it's easier to think of it in the way of what was I expecting or not expecting? Just any surprises. Go ahead and fill those in on the Mentimeter. I'm noticing in these pattern spotting too, there's zooming in and zooming out, right? Noticing a real detailed pattern that you might be seeing visually on the box versus zooming out and noticing the pattern within yourself, like slowing down and asking questions helps. We can do that pattern spotting at all those levels, right? And one of them might be particularly useful right now.
And the pattern of where we focus our attention, because I think we each tend to have patterns to how we attend to things, and what are noticing that is a really valuable pattern.
Right. And which patterns are harder for us, or like feel more feel more anxious for us to notice than others, that we like to stay in another area, right? Yep, that we get kind of stuck in.
Yeah.
I like that, noting patterns within ourselves, like our irritation.
Yes.
Graphic, like,
Yep. Yep.
excellent.
Yep.
Okay, let's do the final one. What do you wonder about or puzzled by with this box in front of you? It's also interesting to notice, I think, that came up in the last pattern about how some of these pattern spotters really can resonate. You can see a lot of different things from asking yourself that pattern spotter, and other ones may not as much.
Yep.
Yeah, a great question here about is there a correlation or causation even of the relationship between colors and words?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What does this all mean? Why are we doing this? Right? Kind of wonder about this context.
Yep.
And it's interesting to me to note too, Christine, and I don't know if you have something to add to this, but the layer of this is just something that we're showing you that you might have initially a neutral, like you may not have a lot of expectation around, sort of a neutral stance to. When we're talking about our own communities, our own groups, our own teams that we're working with, we often already have a lot of expectation or thought or pattern that we initially go to. And what we're trying to do is shift our thinking, get a different perspective, zoom in or zoom out, see if one of these pattern spotters can help us identify something we didn't really notice, or notice those areas that we don't, like, just sort of see something in a different way, or notice those places that we do get stuck in, how, oh, here it goes again, right? Or this always happens, right? So I don't know, Christine, if you have anything you want to add to this before we go to the next step.
Yeah, I was just sort of, so one of the things that, one of the ways that I think of pattern spotters is, we talk a lot now in change context about confirmation bias, or about seeing things with new eyes, or about, being able to start to separate our stories from what's actually going on. And I think of pattern spotting as a really valuable, it's like deceptively simple, but it's sort of stepping us one piece at a time. It's helping us slow down and calm down. So one of the things that I think is so funny, like this person says, why question is why I have so much resistance to engaging with the box. It's like, yeah, why? What is it about what we have these things that we just like see and we're like, ick, that's icky, or I don't like that, or whatever. And that's a good question to ask ourselves. Why are we feeling that way? And but often we just react, and we have this sensation, we want to shut it down, and we react. And so one of the things that happens with social system mapping is there's a lot of data, it's moving around, it's overwhelming, and it's hard, you get overwhelmed, and it becomes really hard to think and hard to make sense because of the overwhelm, or because something about the overwhelm feels threatening or really uncomfortable, and it's harder to think clearly. So pattern spotters can help us A, slow down, B, if we're doing it together, then we start to see how other people are reacting to it and start to get curious about their perspective, or what they're seeing, or what's interesting to them. And the steps are steps that move us. We start with what are the norms, and those might be norms both in what we're seeing, or in the context, but norms in ourselves as well. And then we sort of slowly step away from those norms into the disconfirming bits, and then the surprising bits where reality isn't actually aligning with what you expected. And then the wondering bits is where we come to curiosity. And so it's like a slope taking us from our confirmation bias, our usual assumptions, into a new a much more cognitive openness and a much greater curiosity. So while on the one hand, they're just 4 really kind of dumb, simple, easy questions, on the other hand, they're really sophisticated movement into a new place in our minds. And so I just think they're really valuable, and they can be applied to anything. The box is just a thing. It's just a thing I made up. Nobody did it. I did it. I'm not going to say more about that, but anything, you can apply it to anything and learn something. So
Christine, why don't you stop sharing your screen for a minute so we can just have a little more conversation and do the next step here.
yeah, I should have done that already. So everything is like this. I can't find my stopping sharing thing. Hang on.
It's usually on the top. But Amy, I'm noticing, Amy, you're saying the pattern spotter questions remind you of the focused conversation of ORID. And ORID is a type of adaptive action that we talk about in human systems dynamics. So yeah, the what and the so, it's like coming, like what are we're all seeing together, but having those different perspectives of what we're seeing together and then moving into the interpretive part of it, then that can be really helpful. That's what you do with this information from the patterns. Exactly, Amy. That's great noticing on that.
Can I say
Yeah,
something?
yeah, Cindy, go ahead. Yeah.
One thing that I noticed from everybody's responses is that a lot of people were picking apart the small details, and it's always really important to not, the mechanistic worldview is always taking the pieces apart, and you really should be looking at the whole before you start picking apart the parts. So those of you that were doing that, you really need to focus on the whole before you go to the little pieces. That's more global, no more. What was the other word you used, Christine? It wasn't
Living system. Well, I don't know what you're referring
yeah,
to.
well, okay, anyway, it's the big picture first.
Zooming in and zooming
Well,
out.
it's interesting because it could go both and with that. I feel like in a living system, we zoom in and zoom out. So I guess the question would be, is this useful? Like if we realize we're really picking apart, are we doing it in this mechanistic way, or is that actually giving us a little insight to a little different thing? But it's the question you bring to that, Cindy. I think that's really key.
That's what I was going to ask. Well, how do you do that? Like, does it have to be like the types of questions you ask yourself? Is it the questions you ask?
Yeah, and Kisa, what do you mean by how you do that? You mean the zoom in, zoom out, or you mean the pattern
Yeah,
spotting?
like especially like with the box. I was just like,
Mhm.
okay, what is the box? Why is the box? Why are the words here? You know, like you just asking questions. So, but
Right.
I know when you're designing, it's really not just about any questions. It's about the right questions you're asking yourself. So what are,
Yeah, exactly. And so sometimes we get so overwhelmed. Like if you're thinking about your own network, we get so overwhelmed sometimes we're not sure where to start. You can actually start with a pattern spotting question, and that becomes your first question to ask. That then if you're noticing especially a lot of energy around one of them, or maybe you're even noticing tension between the people who want to get really into the details and the people who want to step back and really get the whole picture first. And that energy between the two is something you can explore and say, well, what is valuable about the detail right here? What would be valuable about moving back and really looking at the whole perspective? And then that would give you, like, you follow the energy then. And sometimes that energy is tension or conflict. But the pattern spotting questions are our initial way to move into it. Especially if we're just not sure where to start, when we're in that place where we have so much data, or we feel like we keep hitting the same challenge in our network. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, the pattern spotter questions are very simple. That's why we're calling them deceptively simple. It's like, it's actually asking your group to say, what do you notice here what's a generalization? What do you notice as a contradiction here in our network? And you might want to focus it, like you could take your challenges that we all came in with, and you could focus the pattern spotting on those challenges, for example. Like you could say, okay, our challenges, we got really excited about putting our network on the social system map. And now we're kind of stuck with getting people to keep it going, right? We're stuck with people putting the information back in. So you could take that challenge and then do a pattern spotting around that. So
Can
you would
we-
use
so-
those. Yeah, go ahead, Christine. Yeah.
Oh, so I think what Kisa wants is to see the pattern spotter questions. Will she put that? So Kara, could you pull those out of the agenda and stick them in the chat so she has
Yeah,
the
that'd be
the
great.
actual literal, it's simple, it's, I wonder, or no, in general. I'm
In general, as a question, it's like, in general, what do I see here?
Yeah.
In general, what do I see? But this contradiction here, you just add the question to the pattern spotter.
And Victoria had her hand up for a moment. And Victoria, before we move on, I just want to see if you feel satisfied or if you want to.
Yeah, I think hearing the rest of the conversation between Lisa and Kisa helped clarify for me some of what Cindy was talking about.
Okay, great. Yay. So.
So yeah, what I think what we're gonna do, Christine, do you want to go or should I?
You go ahead.
We'd like to have you think about your own network. Now, whether you have a map, the map is a great place to look because it's a visual to see these patterns. Or you can use our community of practice map, which we'll put a link to the chat, and Carol put a link in the chat about that. And we're going to have you kind of look at that and just do some pattern spotting of your own systems. So you can have your own network in mind. If that's not feeling like it's as easy to do, you can go to this embed link to this to the map of the community of practice, or maybe you want to call up your own map if you have a social system map for your network already. Christine, am I missing anything in this step here?
Okay, I'm sort of going, so were we gonna do that? Just have them do that on their own, or we're gonna put them back into the breakouts? I thought we were gonna put
I'm
them.
looking at time and I'm thinking, we were first gonna have them look on their own and then go into breakouts. So should we just combine them and do it together?
Yeah. That's, yeah. Okay, so everyone who's in the breakout, at least one of you should have the embed link and be able to navigate it. So if you are someone who already knows how to do that, I would just prepare and be ready in case others don't. And then just together do pattern spotting with, and I think I went to the connections view in our map. So it's the most complex one, so that it gives you the most to work with. So I would just click on that link and be in whatever view you get, I think. Sorry, I'm not super clear, but.
Let me go over one more time what we're hoping to have you do in the breakouts. You're gonna go to a map together. And if you don't have your own map that you want to share with your group, it might be easiest just to use this embed link that's on the chat. Go to that map. The view that's going to show up is the most complicated view that you have available to you, so that you'll have a pretty overwhelming visual. And then what we'd like you to do is just take each one of those pattern spotters and just use the pattern spotters and see what you notice on that view of the map.
Together.
Together. Do that just together as you're looking at the map. And then come back with what surprised and what do you wonder about. So the last two pattern spotters, if you could come back, and we'll talk about those when you come back into the main room. And we're going to give you about 15 minutes to do that.
Questions? Anyone before Kara? Okay. Good luck. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you had some good conversation and spotted some patterns that were at least spotted and hopefully interesting or worthy of your cognition for a few minutes. Anyway, Lisa, you want to feel?
That me?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm handing it off.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what patterns came up, especially what you were surprised by or wonder about. You can just share your voice in the room, or if you'd rather write in chat, you can do that too. Or just generally, what did you notice in the embed map as you were practicing pattern spotting?
And there's actually a slide in Mentimeter for that if we want to. Though it didn't, yeah.
I think maybe let's not do this. Let's not share your screen, Christine.
Fine.
Just a little bit easier to see everybody in the room here.
Yep.
Have a conversation.
I agree.
So Kara, do you mind popping in the chat? What what did you notice? What patterns did you notice on the map? Yeah, Denise.
Victoria in our group made a great observation. She said that she noticed when Cindy shared her screen and she pulled apart everyone and how they were connected. And Victoria noticed that when you take Christine out of the picture, how disconnected the map really was. And that just gave me an opportunity to kind of tell her that we all came to extract information from Christine, and now we're trying to learn to what is our purpose of our map. So I think she identified without knowing an ongoing struggle that we've been dealing with, which I thought was great, because that's really part of what we've been talking about, the reorganizing of staff. So that was, I thought, great on both parts.
Oh, that's
That was
great.
Victoria,
I love that double layer of noticing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Christine, did you want to add something to that? This is just like, I saw you nodding, so wondering.
No, I'll just add, I've seen this happen before where when we do pattern spotters and somebody who's totally new to our community, knows nothing about our community, they look at our map and they can start telling me all the things that I you know that are true, that we need, that we're working on. So,
and that actually is something I was noticing with Christina as we were planning this session. When I was thinking back with groups I've been part of or working with as more of an external consultant, often the external eyes, like the ones who are not part of it, see the patterns quicker, because when we're in it, we're like, it's so much harder for us to see it, right? We're kind of stuck in it. And so that's actually something good to notice, like someone you trust coming to see, like getting advice, like that might be something to do, is add, or are there parts of your network, your social system that haven't been part of a certain conversation and you'd like to get their view, and they might see this pattern just so much more easily when we're not in it. Other notice themes are what patterns you saw in the map. Surprises or wondering. I see a chat here from Bill. Oh, you saw it as a powerful tool doing pattern spotting. Yeah, and that kind of question, what will it take to engage more fully? What's that one wise action to do there? And sometimes just one thing we notice, I'm kind of feeling this with your question, Bill, is we notice in the living systems, when we're in complex living systems, that sometimes that's just what we're trying to do, is identify the question we have to hold. There's something about holding the energy of that question, knowing that you want to find time for that helps it in front of you. You may not actually answer that question in a concrete, mechanistic way, right? It's actually like, oh, this is the question right now in front of me or in front of our network. And we're just going to hold this for a while and see, like, even just, I don't know, there's something about holding the question that you start to look at it a little differently. You start to see things a little different. Oh, that's a good point, Cindy, about having the burning question to bring people together. Like we were talking about earlier, like what's that challenge, or is there a place? So in complexity theory or complex adaptive living systems, and we talk a lot about this in human systems dynamics, we talk about the sticky issue. So it's this issue that you feel like you keep trying to work on, and we've often put it in that category as a problem you can solve, but it's not, right? It ends up, and that's because it's sticky, it keeps coming back. It's like, oh, here we go again. We thought we'd solved that, or we thought we'd talked about that enough, right? And then it comes back. So it's those sticky issues, and if you're noticing those, which are patterns in of themselves, but that's where you can dive in and do a more deeper pattern spotting, right? Like that's a place to start.
We've got just a few minutes left. And Kisa, while you guys were in your breakout, Lisa and I were having a conversation about your question and how well we did or didn't answer it. And we were just curious to know if, when you asked the question about the pattern spotting questions, I think there were a number of ways we respond to it. And I wasn't sure if you actually got what you needed. So we wanted to also circle back and see if that was, if it's settled in you, or if it's still in there needing another go. Kisa, that was for you. If you're,
Oh, I know. I was just talking, but I was on mute.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I know. It was great. It's a new way of me like looking at something, like specifically when it comes to patterns. So I'm pretty open. I don't have any other questions or thoughts. I'm just gonna see how I apply them.
okay, great, thanks.
Great.
Any other?
And I
Go
just
ahead.
like what Bill wrote in here too, fear. And to me, I feel like that's something I want to, I love that you said that, and I'm going to hold it. That's that's going to be like my week. That's my week mantra here, coming into a Monday, coming into a new week. That's excellent, Bill. I love it.
Yeah.
Acknowledging your fear and then how love can combat that. I don't want to use that language, combat. I'm just thinking about this combo of love or gratitude and love and fear, and how they really, I guess neuroscience is showing us that they cannot be in the brain at the same time. Fear and love and gratitude, and love putting together against fear. So like that.
Any other last thoughts before we jump off?
Oh, when is the next meeting? Like, how do I sign up?
Kara will put some links in the chat right now, and she will also send a follow-up email to everyone who attended with more information and stuff. But there will be another meeting. There will be a map will be presented next Monday. We do this the first 3 Mondays of the month at the same time. So hope to see you next time.
Yeah, and as you leave, we just love to get any feedback or insights you're having in the last couple of minutes.
Yeah. And
you
just
can put that in the chat for us.
Yeah.
On the whole overall session. Just any ways we can improve, any insights or feedback you have for me and Christine.
Yeah. So Amy, the place to get stories or concrete examples is the on-ramp, which is the second Monday. Someone in the community shares a map that they've made, and we do questions and answers on, how is it working? What have you done? How did you handle this, etc. Yeah.
And
so
Amy, I'm also thinking just introducing the pattern spotting. I could have used some examples of patterns and things. So I'm taking that insight for that too.
So I'm gonna let us, while you're finishing putting your thoughts in there, any kind of feedback is great. So for those of you who are new, we have a goodbye ritual, and it's time to do it. And I'm just going to say, I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1. You can all unmute. We just like to leave you with blessings for the day. So unmute. I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1. And when I get to 1, we just all give each other our love and our blessings, and you can then just jump off. So 3, 2, 1. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for everyone.
To you all.
Thank you. Great week. Appreciating you.
Yep.